Hello guys, welcome back to SF Info YouTube channel, and this is our video number 5 on Java course. Okay, let's talk about conditional statements in Java. Now when we are programming, sometimes we have to perform some operations based on some conditions only. For an example, let's say you are logging into Facebook. Now when you are logging in, Facebook asks for your username and password. And if you give them correctly, then you log into your Facebook account. And if you type them wrong, you will get an error message. So that is what we basically do with conditional statements. Okay, we check for some condition and then we do our operation. Okay, in Java, there are three ways to check a condition: using if-else statement, switch statement, or using ternary statement. Let's try them in our IDE. Okay, I am creating a new class here. First, we will see how if statement works. Let's take an example. Let's say we have an integer name num equal to 4. Suppose you have to check whether this number is an even number or not. Even number means if you divide this number by 2, you shouldn't have any remainder. So I want to print even or odd according to this variable. Now if I run this, these both will be printed. So if I want to print this under some conditions, I can go with if, then brackets, and inside of these brackets is where you type the condition. First, let's try to understand what happens with this. So in this condition, it has to be true to execute this. Now if I run this, it prints the both. But if this condition is false, it will print only odd, not even. Means this first one under this if condition is not printed, is not executed. Now if I put another if to it and set the value to false, and nothing prints. If this one true and this one false, we get even, means this one. So when the condition is true, it gets printed. When it is false, it is not get printed. Now I need to check whether this number is an even number or not. To decide the number if it is even, what we do is we check if there's any remainder when we divide the number by 2. So we can use num modulo 2, which will give the remainder of num when it is divided by 2. Then we see if this is equal to 0, means no remainder. So if the number divided by 2 and it gives no remainder, we print even. Now this is one of the comparison operators. There are several comparison operators. Those are these symbols: less than, and this is for greater than, and this is equal to, and then not equal to, and less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. So these are used to compare two variables. In this case, we use equal operator. So if I run this now, it will print even, because this number is even. And in here, I want to check if this is not the case. So if I run this now, we will get even because number 4 is even. And if I change this number to 5 now and run this again, we will get odd. So it checks the number, and if it is an even one, it will get print even, and otherwise it will print odd. Now instead of this second if, which works when the opposite of this first one happens, we can use else. Now if I run this, it will be the same. Okay, now suppose I want to do another different operation using this. Now let's say your number is 0. Now number 0 is not an even number or odd number. In that case, if the number is 0, I want to do a different operation. So I use another if here and check if number is equal to 0. And in that case, I print 0. So if it is not 0, and then it goes to this condition. Otherwise, we print 0. So first we are checking for this, and only if it is not 0, then we go for this. So after this, if I am using else to these both. This is called nested. First we check for number 0, and if it is not 0, then we go for this if else. And if it is not 0, and then if it is an even number, we will print even, and otherwise we will print odd. So if I run this, it will run 0 and it works fine. But we can use here if else if to do the same job. So first we check for if, and if it is not the case, and if there's another condition, we check that with else if, and finally we check with else. So this is called if else statement. Now if you have more than one line to execute here, let's say you are printing not only this one and also this one too. So if you are executing more than one line, you have to use curly brackets. So after if condition, if you use curly brackets, so whatever the statements you are executing, it will happen. So it's a good practice to use curly brackets always. Even if it's a one line, you can use curly brackets. It will not harm the code. Now we get these both printed because the number is 0. Alright, now we will see how ternary statement works. In ternary, we put the condition, then the question mark, and then we say what needs to be happen under this condition. So let's say process 1, then a colon, and next the process 2, which needs to be happen if this condition is false. So we are checking for the condition, and if the condition is true, we will go with this process, and if it is not true, we will go with process number 2. So usually we get this as a value to a variable. So in the ternary, what we do is we get a variable. Alright, now let's go for an example. Okay, for an example, we can do our previous example like this. Declare a string variable. I will say the name var. Now the condition is num modulo 2 equal to 0. So we are checking if this is true, and if it is true, as the process 1, we assign a variable to this var. So I will say even. So if this is true, we assign a string variable the value with even, and if it is not true, means the process 2, I will say odd, and end of the line by semicolon. Now what we have to do is simply print this variable. So the value of this variable depends on this number. So if this number is even, it will say even, otherwise odd. So if I run this now, it will say even, and if I change this number to 7, it will say odd, because in that case this condition is not true, so it will assign odd to this variable. So when we print this variable, it has the value of odd. So that is how ternary statement works.
Bye.